I welcome everyone to this meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee this evening. It's good to see people here. And I also welcome our colleagues from SWAP. We've got a huge representation here tonight, so some of us will be outnumbered, I'm sure, but it's great to see you all here, and obviously we're looking forward to the relationship we will have with you from the 1st of April, and hopefully that's ongoing. No doubt Myriam will be telling me how it's going in due course. And just welcome all the members, both online and on the screen, for joining this evening. So thank you all very much. Going to the agenda, the first, just to say that item 7 on the agenda will be presented before item 6.
Sorry, Chair, item 5 and item 6.
Right, okay. Thank you, Taylor. So hopefully you've got that, and the rest is in order. Taylor, can you say what?
So item 5 and item 6 can be presented like in reverse, so but that's the only change on the agenda.
Okay. Okay, go to the agenda then. Item 1, which is the apologies for absence. I've got 3 apologies. Councillor Fowweather, Councillor Perkins and Councillor Howells. Any other apologies? If we go then to item 2, which is the declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest? No one showing? Okay. Item 3 then on the agenda are minutes of the previous meeting, pages 3 to 8 for correctness only. Are there any issues? Someone prepared to move? Thank you, Don. Seconded by Councillor Jordan. Anyone against? No. Thank you very much. Item 3A then is the recommendations table for noting primarily. Anyone got any comments on that? No. That be noted. Someone move that we note it. Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Anyone against? No. Thank you. Next one is item 4, which is the call-in houses in multiple occupation licensing, the limited assurance opinion, and the report is contained at pages 17 to 30. And over to you. Is it David?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to go back through the report in detail. We did that in the session we attended just before Christmas. So I'm really going to focus on the updates from that meeting as requested. So if we look at the critical weakness, the action plan, the risk-based management action plan is in place. And in terms of progress against that, I can provide a range of updates. So in terms of the registered social landlords, the RSLs, we've completed our work with the RSLs there. All of the hazards have been resolved other than hazards related to overcrowding. Now, those cases, clearly overcrowding is a really significant issue, but we've worked with the housing advice and prevention team to ensure that we can provide housing advice and support to those groups, and to ensure that their application for rehousing reflects their current situation. So we feel from an environmental health perspective, we've done everything we can there to manage the risk and to bring those hazards to a close. I'll then now move to the privately rented houses in multiple occupation, and those properties required re-inspecting this financial year. That's all been completed, and the Category 1 hazards have been resolved there, which is great. The area where we have had some more challenges around the privately rented houses with single occupancy. They are the lower risk houses compared to the HMOs, just because of their very nature. As we reported in the last meeting, the plan was to get in some agency capacity to really push that forward. Unfortunately, due to issues related to recruitment, and we've had to change our approach, it just wasn't working. We're pushing that through additional resources for the formal restructure of the team. The recruitment is due to be completed, not quite be completed, but certainly end of March, early April, and we then expect to have those hazards resolved over the first quarter of the next financial year. In terms of the moderate weakness, again, that work, given the additional capacity, was contingent on the restructure, which will be to be completed imminently, and again will then be able to ensure that we've got that sense check-in from the principal environmental health officer in place for next quarter moving onwards. So I think we've made decent progress. There have been some hiccups, but we've changed approach to address those, and we'd be more than happy, we'll be re-engaging with our internal audit, more than happy to provide a further progress update later on this year to committee.
Yes, thank you for that, David. Clearly there's been significant progress from when you first, or your colleagues first appeared before it, and I think if you could compliment your team for doing that and getting us into a position where we are currently. I know the report says that to date 10 out of the 11 recommendations have been completed. Obviously you work on the rest. I think I'd endorse that our audit colleagues look at this again soonest if we can, or when the head of service recommends it. I'm sure it's in your plan, Amy. Right, okay. Amy will look at this with her team and then obviously report back to us, and hopefully, I don't know whether it's in the first quarter, but whenever it's looked at, then we'll have an internal report, and if it comes back as hopefully satisfactory, not limited anymore, or no comments on it, then obviously we can release you and get on with the job. That would be marvellous. Amy, just very quickly.
This feels very close to my face, so hopefully this is not too loud. It is in the plan, and I would say that it would be good to give enough time to get them implemented so that our follow-up is useful. And I've just started sending out the emails to heads of service to sort of say when are the best times to do these audits. So yeah, we'll pick that up, David and I.
Yeah.
No, that's lovely. Thank you. So, any questions? Norma?
I did have one question, but I think David answered it, just to be sure I understood it. But I just want to sort of support your comments, really, Chair, as well. That I think it's really good to see the progress that's been made, Chair. You know, it's very pleasing to see what's been done. I was a bit concerned to hear about your experience with agency staff, you know, because we end up wasting money, don't we, if they're not delivering, which is disappointing. Was I right, David, you said that the new HMO licensing lead that you're in the process of recruiting will be an environmental health officer?
Yes.
That's right, because my concern was reading the papers, will this person have the skills? But
Yeah,
that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Reynolds?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'll echo your comments as well, actually. Thanks, David, for giving us such good news, really, on the progress that's been made. My question is also related to the recruitment as well, to be honest. I mean, you did allude to this anyway, but I just wonder whether you could give us any more detail about, you said there was recruitment issues and the subsequent restructure, I think on page 20 and 21 of your reports, and you said you're hoping to complete it by the end of March, early April. Well, obviously that's pretty well imminent, isn't it? So I just wondered, could you give us a little bit more detail about the structure that's needed and how close you are to actually appointing the HMO licensing lead?
Yeah, so there's a couple of elements of the structure that we need to address. I think the HMO licensing lead is a key one because it releases kind of management capacity, but also ensures that we have a slightly more senior officer really focused on the HMOs and driving that regime. There's also a range of other things that we're putting into place. For example, just signing off today on a slight change to our support officer and extending that. So there's a range of kind of supportive functions that we need to put in place, Councillor Reynolds, both in terms of staffing capacity, but also working in terms of the systems that the team are using out in the field. Environmental health officers, as you've seen from our recruitment challenges, are a really, really valuable resource, a professional, highly skilled resource. So really the aim of the restructure, but also looking more widely at the team and the systems that we're using, is to free up their capacity to do environmental health work to identify hazards, to chase them up as far as we possibly can.
Oh, that's great, David. It was capacity was my main concern, to be honest, because the way I read the report was 2 people had been recruited, and for whatever reasons it hadn't really worked out, and then there's going to be a restructure to cover that lack of the 2 people have gone missing. Not gone missing, that's the wrong word, isn't it? But you know what I mean. So yeah, it was capacity I was concerned about, was would these responsibilities be spread amongst too few people? But yeah, I think you've covered that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Any other questions? Any comments? Don.
Slightly frustrating that you've answered all the questions, but well done. I just wanted to make a comment on that, to applaud your team for changing plan when something isn't working, because so often you just think, okay, we're going to keep doing it and it's going to come in the end. If it's not working, let's change it, let's look at it. So I just wanted to applaud you for that, and trying to come up with a solution that is going to work, because I do think it's such a movable feast, the HMO. We've got to be quite flexible and come up with something that works for Newport in this. So just wanted to congratulate the team, and it's really good, the progress that is being made, and it will be nice to release them at some stage.
Thank you. And I will pass all of your comments on to the team, because it's the service manager and the principal environmental health officer that have really driven this, rather, so I'll make sure they hear that.
Thank you, Don. Any other comments? No. Clearly, if you take that back to your team, I think they've made superb progress, and it doesn't go unrecognised that there's a tremendous amount of officer time here that needs to deliver these changes. So, yeah, if you could convey our thanks.
I will do. Thank you.
And thanks to yourself as well, for bringing this to us. The recommendation, I think, really is just we note the contents of the report and the progress made, and secondly, that we await the follow-up audit, which hopefully will be done within Q1 or Q2 of this year.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair.
Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Dom. Seconder? Norma, thank you. Anyone against? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. You can stay if you want, but if you want to go home, you carry on. Next item is item 5, which is the call-in safeguarding of children's money. Jay, it's lovely to see you in person. You actually look as you are on screen.
It's good to see you too, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, so firstly to say thank you, everybody, and thank you to the committee members. Obviously, what I'll do is just very briefly give you a bit of a background, but my plan is then to move on to the action plan, if that's okay. So, I always do this. I've got to bring the mic closer. So, as you know, Can I? There we are. That's better. That's true. Okay, in July 2023, the Safeguarding of Children's Monies was presented to Governance and Audit Committee, and as you know, there was an unsound audit opinion at that time. What we have done since then, obviously, is focus on improving the financial and administrative controls in place to address the administration of those funds. And then, obviously, what you'll be aware then is we came back to committee in January and September to give you a verbal update in terms of the progress. Since then, as you'll also be aware, there was a follow-up audit that was undertaken very recently in February and March. And obviously, the internal audit review had obviously reviewed the effectiveness of the controls in place, and the outcome of that review was there was a reasonable audit opinion. The audit did identify one outstanding weakness of significant nature and 7 moderate weaknesses which have been partially completed. I think if I address the moderate aspects first, I think the challenge for us, it's an ongoing piece of work. I think we are going to continue to be required to dip sample regularly, and one of the issues is obviously about being able to try and contact people who are over 18 who unfortunately we may not have records for, and one of the other particular areas of challenge is for adopters. We regularly make contact with them, but it's up to them to decide if they wish to choose to contact the local authority, so all we can do is continue to do that process. I think the other good bit of news to share with you, one of the other outstanding areas was just about ensuring there was a young person's looked after financial policy. That's now almost at completion. So that's a good bit of news. If I just then focus on the area of significant weakness, I think the core issue is about how we kind of reach the broader audience of over 18s who aren't contactable anymore. And one of the things that we've discussed with help from audit was to think about how we address it through a public media campaign message instead. So the focus, and I've had this discussion with my line manager Natalie and with Tanya, and we're looking at developing a broader media message which will offer contact details and a point of contact really to refer people on to the share funds specifically, and any court funds that children and young people might be eligible for. I think all we can do is continue to be proactive and try and send out that message and then offer support and guidance where possible. I think the difficulty or the caveat here is that because the monies aren't held by the council, it makes it more complicated because we can only act as a conduit for that rather than being the people that administrate it directly. So I think it's just to say to you, obviously it's an issue, we're aware of that, and we're trying to find a more proactive way. I think the other thing that is worth highlighting during this journey, I think what's been clear is the share found report itself isn't always consistent, and when we spoke to young people, particularly who we wanted to establish they had made the claim, a number of them had made their claim, but it was still recorded on share found's account that they hadn't. So I think there's also some further communication that needs to take place with share found to address that issue and highlight the fact that there's inconsistencies in their reporting. So the other thing I just wanted to say, which you probably will hear very rarely, is that I've actually found the auditing process extremely helpful, and I have enjoyed some of it because actually it's helped me identify things that I probably, from a social work perspective, wouldn't have identified. So I just want to say I will always be happy to welcome that process, and I know that it's a finite resource, but actually it's been a great partnership and I've really appreciated the help.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you for that comment at the end. I think that ought to be circulated around the council to see audit not as the internal police force, but actually people who are looking to improve the internal controls, and you know, they would, I'm sure, provide you with some help and assistance and signposting if they can, you know, to how to deliver that. And I think that's what you said there is very pleasing to hear. You know, in my long career, I haven't heard it. You know, I know I've heard lots of other things about internal audit, which aren't pleasant, but you know, that is nice to hear. So thank you very much for that. Can I also say thank you as well for all your hard work, and I know Natalie and Tanya are on the screen. You know, again, a tremendous amount of work that's gone into this, and in a very difficult area, as you quite rightly say, because sometimes you haven't got control over any of this, and the money's held centrally, and once they're 18 and they're gone. So, yeah, thank you for that. I do note again in the risks, in the recommendations there, that there is to be another follow-up audit at some stage. Audit 3, is it? Are you just going to do a dip into there, Amy? I know you've got a reasonable audit opinion on the last one. But it does say that an internal audit will undertake a further follow-up audit, number 3, to just check what's happening in regards to those recommendations. So, Chair, I've got a slight different view on this. I think we can either follow up the actions as part of action tracking, and through joining SWAP now, that'll look slightly different. And I think I've spoken to Myrian, the SWAP action tracking process, I think, will be more robust than the current process. Having said that, if there is appetite for another audit, I would actually feel more comfortable if we actually do a new audit, still very much taking in consideration the controls we're talking about here, but actually stepping back now and thinking, looking at the service and thinking, what are the risks here? Where could the internal audit add value? Rather than just going back and checking what we've been checking. So I'm happy, we could do both. We could do one or the other, but certainly that both those things are on my radar. Yeah, before I ask for anything, I wouldn't want to overburden, certainly the department, with it. They've got a reasonable insurance now, so in reality we would release them, given that. Whether this can be tracked on the action tracker, that would be great, and I think that may be a way forward. Let things in bed, settle down, and then maybe next year, 26, whatever it is, 26, 27, is it? Cool. Maybe you look at it then. But I think, you know, what I wouldn't want is to overburden, you know, they've done a tremendous amount of work to date, is to overburden Jay and his team again. You know, if they can address, which I'm sure they will, work on those, that at one significant weakness and the 7 others. You can look at it at the tracker. I'm sure the director will look at it on the tracker, and then, work through it. And then, the proof of the pudding will be in 26, 27. But, let's see what questions come out first and comments. Any questions? Norma.
A comment. I'm glad you said about how helpful audit is, because I take that view as well. And I was running, big programs. If I had problems, I bring audit in, and and that's what it should be. It should be a partnership. Anyway, picking up the point about action tracking. That's where I had an issue going through the papers, really. And I think it might be partly because the narrative has not been updated, because a lot of the narrative talks about the future, and then you have ongoing, and I think, well, has this action been completed or not? And it wasn't really clear in my mind, and I listed, probably about 9 or 10 that I wasn't really clear on, and I think it's important as an audit committee to have that assurance and to have a target date. Like, for your first one, I think you mentioned, Jay, that that's about to be issued. That was the CLA policy, and you've got a target date at the end of March, so, presumably we're going to meet that one more or less, so that's good. But, some say it's still ongoing, and I'm reading the narrative, and I'm thinking, well, we're talking about the future here. What actually has been done, and what's left to do, and when is it going to be finished? So I would suggest that we look very carefully at that action tracking document. I'm really in favour of those things we need to keep track on, so that we have confidence we've got a deadline and something's going to be completed then. I was particularly concerned about 4.01, I think, which was the last one. I can't remember what it was, but just on my notes I've got that. They seem to be around for a long time. And there's no date for it, so if we could have a date there. But, it's good to see, it's good progress, and I do appreciate the challenges in the area. Thank you.
Is it okay to respond, Chair? I take that feedback completely, and what I'll make sure in future is that the detail on the action plan is there for you. I think probably my own mistake is potentially realising that there's ongoing dip sampling that's going to be required, and we will do that routinely. And I think what I really want to do, yeah. Not sure what's been done. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, we can't hear what's being said in the chamber.
Hey, John.
Yeah, sorry about that. I could hear Jay, but I couldn't hear anything else.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Jay. John, have you got a question?
Thanks, Chair. I've actually got a few questions. I mean, would you prefer me to ask these all together, or should I do them one at a time?
I suggest you do them all together. I think Jay's got his pen poised, so you do them all together.
Okay, here we go, Jay. Good luck, mate. I mean, the first thing is that I've got to say about, well done, Jay, first of all, on probably an NCC first. I don't think I've ever heard the words audit and enjoy in the same sentence, so congratulations on that. A bit more seriously, I just want a couple of things I wanted to check with you. One of them was, there's a reference made to the policy regarding savings for looked after children being on the website by the end of March, which obviously we're very close to. So can I just confirm whether that is actually on the website now, so that that's available? So that's question number one. The next one then is to do with the critical weakness that was identified regarding the payments from criminal injuries compensation. It's been logged as ongoing, that's already been mentioned by Norma. I just wondered if you could give us a little bit of detail on what the current progress is with that spreadsheet and that record keeping for any payments that might be either lagging or due. And then you've also mentioned in the report dip sampling quite a few times. So I just wondered whether maybe you could give us an idea of how often that's done, and has that dip sampling, if I can get my teeth in, has it actually identified any shortcomings or improvements in the record keeping and the data analysis? I mean, how useful has that actually been? And then the last one I wanted to ask was, obviously, quite recently, Newport, the City Council, in full council, we recognise care leaving as a protected characteristic. And the one thing that really worried me was quite significant amounts of money not finding its way to care leavers, and I know tracking some of these people might be difficult after they've gone. I mean, there was the criminal injuries compensation I've already mentioned. There's also the junior ISAs, and it is significant money that potentially vulnerable people haven't had access to. So, again, could we give us some sort of reassurance that whatever caused that in the first place, I'm assuming it was incomplete data somewhere along the line, has that been addressed, and can we sort of give an assurance to our current looked after children that this won't happen to them? Sorry to go on a bit, Chair, but thank you for that.
No, I'm pleased you didn't have 25 questions. As I always said, you could deal with them individually, but thank you for that, John.
I've got 32 questions when we come to audit later.
Okay, you okay for me to respond? First of all, appreciate all of those questions, really, really good detail, so I'll respond to each in the right order. So in terms of the class savings policy, that's reviewed each year, so we review that routinely at the same time because obviously changes do happen. As far as I understand, it should be on our council intranet system. I will check up in terms of the council's external system. I'll have a conversation with the comms team to clarify that that's happened. Okay. The second point about record keeping, apologies, John. Sorry, Councillor Reynolds. I hope I've got this right.
John's fine.
It's the bit about we use a central recording spreadsheet system. It is a little bit admin intensive and heavy, but effectively we've devised a number of columns on that spreadsheet which contains all the necessary information for each child or young person that this is connected to. And within that are a number of questions which help us address which type of funds they've got available, whether they've received them, what type of communication's taken place, what the follow-up is, and any update in relation to that. So obviously we routinely now go through that. It's very intensive, as you can imagine, but it's a piece of work that myself and the business support team have been overseeing. And when I say I've been personally invested in this, I've been involved in the checking of that spreadsheet quite regularly. And after the recent re-audit, it was really helpful actually to identify where some of the potential barriers are. So what generally tends to happen is if business support aren't routinely getting the information that they need, I personally contact the relevant staff members for that information. So obviously when I say I'm personally invested, I really am personally invested in making sure that information is made available. I think the next part, just to sort of share with you around criminal compensations, it's a really difficult process because obviously it sits within the court funds. We routinely link in with our legal department, we contact the court funds, but ultimately the length of time it takes to release those funds is up to the court funds themselves. So all we can do is act as a conduit for that, but obviously we haven't got any control over when those things are released. And obviously there's a process behind that. And in one of the individual cases, which you'll have noted previously, that matter was resolved because the person was reaching the point of 18 when the funds were finally released. So just to be clear, that's the update on that. In terms of amounts, I think what's really important to stress to you, in terms of savings, we're not talking massive amounts of money, but I mean, obviously for a young person, it's still money is money and it's important. But I think when we looked at each of the individual components, and I'll share with you one of the complexities, we had a group of over 18s who lacked capacity, and as you know, the difficulty with that process is they have to go through the court of protection to apply for those funds. It actually worked out more detrimental for them to make an application because it would have cost them more money in the long term than to actually receive the funds. So which is a very sad situation, as you can imagine, but obviously we had to explore that process to establish what was probably going to be the best way forward in terms of those young people and meeting their needs. But I mean, I think what I just want to be really clear is that since the introduction of these mechanisms and controls, I think for all of the under 18s, we've got a robust process now in place. So obviously this won't happen again to any of those young people in future. I think the sad part for me is it's the over 18s who probably missed out on the potential of this particular process. So that's probably, you know, to take on board your point, that's probably the saddest and most frustrating part of it. And I hope, have I addressed the last point? And if I haven't, please forgive me. Could you repeat it?
I think you have actually covered everything. I'm just quickly checking through. Yeah, I think you've covered everything that I asked. Yeah, no, thanks, Jay. That's
No
great.
problem.
It makes things a lot clearer.
Thank you. Comments? Don?
Comment and a question, Chair. You know, you're getting ahead of yourself. You know. My question is to us as a committee, because I think Jay and his colleagues have been on a journey with us, and you know, and I think there has been a massive amount of progress, and not been the easiest journey either. And looking at the proposal which is on our minutes, and weighing that against that we're going to have, you know, if we elect Amy's going to go through the action tracker, my thing is, why can't we release these people to get on with there? And so I don't think we need to see them again. If Amy tells us different, we can put them back in there. But I think with the progress that's been made, I'm just wondering what, with the proposal, whether we just release them and we'll see them again if we need to.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Given that we've got a reasonable assurance report, we would normally release. Yeah. It'll be on the action tracker, which obviously Amy and the team can just keep a weathered eye on, and then they do the review in 26, 27, you know, and maybe they do you know, a secret shopper at some stage. I don't know, but I'm completely with you there, Don. That would be my recommendation as well.
Okay. As much as we'd like to see you, Jay, don't take it.
I was going to say, I hope you keep a space warm for me for next time. I'm enjoying this.
Okay, are there any other comments? No. Okay, obviously, Jay, thank you very much. I'm pleased you said we keep you a seat warm. You are more than welcome at any time to come along to the committee and sit here for 3 or 4 hours. I don't mind, provided the director will release you. It'll be a pleasure to see you. So I agree with what Don said. So the recommendation, I think, is, and firstly, thank you and your team, and Tanya, if you could take that back, and Natalie, for the tremendous amount of work that's, as Don has said, has gone on to get us to where we are. You know, don't give up hope now. You know, you've got to continue with that, and you know, ensure that our young people who are, you know, subject to these necessary orders and such like of the Newport City Council are, you know, well served by the council. Recommendation, I think, is to note the contents of the report, and clearly that you know, that it will be the matters will be reviewed via the action plan for the foreseeable future, and then there'll be an intention, presumably, to look at this again in 26, 27. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Jason. Seconded by Norma. Anyone against? No, thank you very much. And given your, you know, enthusiasm, Jay, you can stay with us if you wish.
I've got to go back to the teams to say thank you now.
Okay. But thank you very much,
No,
Jay.
thank you, everybody,
thank you.
and thank you for your help.
Thanks. Okay, next item is item 7, which is the Audit Wales Audit Summary 24, which is pages 81 to 88. Is that... I've got 3 colleagues from... Oh, it's Sarah Jane.
Yeah, good evening, Chair. Yes, I'm Sarah Jane Byrne from Audit Wales. Yes, there are 3 of us here today. We're going to kind of divvy the items up between us. So thank you for moving the annual audit summary first. We thought that was a bit more logical. So hopefully you'll be familiar with this annual audit summary. You've received one before. It is a summary of work that we've done since we issued the last annual audit summary. Many of those items have been through Governance and Audit Committee before. So at the start, you'll see it includes some facts about the Council, and it sets out the Auditor General's duties, which obviously underpin the work that we do. It also summarises the findings from our audit of the Council's 23-24 financial statements. That includes that the draft statements were submitted on time and the Auditor General gave an unqualified opinion and certified at the end of June. And I know we brought that report to Governance and Audit Committee back in January. The annual audit summary obviously then goes on to cover other areas of work and includes the kind of headline findings. So in there it includes the unscheduled care report. And just to make you aware, I understand that that report is going to the Health Board's committee in the next few weeks. It is available on our website. The report has been cleared through the RPB, but we're happy to attend a future Governance and Audit Committee or a Scrutiny Committee to talk through that report. But I appreciate we've included the kind of headline conclusions in the annual audit summary. The other reports are included there. Again, you'll be familiar with the local financial sustainability report, commissioning. My colleague Verity is here today. That's an item later on in your agenda. And then again, the local projects, the planning services review and the corporate arrangement safeguarding review, I know have previously been to audit committee. And then it lists the national reports that we have published as well. So again, you'll be familiar with some of those through the quarterly work programme updates that we take to audit committee. And then finally, it includes the work that we had planned for 24-25, and I can pick those up in the work programme timetable item if that's okay, Chair. But happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah Jane. Are there any questions? Don?
Yeah. Question, comment, whatever. I don't really, but I think it's a question. So if you, I don't like this report, the wording. It's not actually a glowing endorsement. On page, on my report, we've got page 84 that's got 83. Let me just call it up. It's got the, in terms of the quality of the draft financial statements presented was generally good. It's not exactly a glowing endorsement when you've got an unqualified opinion. And I noticed with Audit Wales, one of their aims is to inspire the public sector to do better. That's not that wording, and then you're giving a good statement. I think that's not. I think the wording is not good. So my question is that if the quality of the financial audit was generally good, so are they saying that there's a significant amount which wasn't good? That's my question.
I'll take that one. Thanks, Chair. It relates to the financial audit. Okay, so you might recall our audit of financial statements report, which we presented to you in the January committee. So yes, you're correct. The Auditor General did certify the accounts with an unqualified opinion. So that means the financial statements are true and fair, and the accounts are materially correct. What we mean by the financial statements presented for audit was generally good. You may also recall in that same report there was an appendix 3 to the report, which set out a number of misstatements. So these are corrections to the financial statements, and there were a couple of pages of corrections to the financial statements. So in general, yes, the quality of the annual report and accounts presented was of good quality. It wasn't excellent quality. If it was excellent quality, then we wouldn't have found as many misstatements. So I think that might answer your question, but happy to elaborate.
Thank you for your answer. Which I understand what you're saying. I still think generally good is not exactly motivating for the council, and just my view, which is probably wrong, I don't think it's a fair comment, but then that would be my comment. I think it could, with the work that the council's done and the fact it's unqualified, I think the wording could have been worded differently to give a different impression.
Okay, noted.
Any other questions? I've just got... Oh, Don, go on.
On page 84 of the report, under the unscheduled care, it's got more timely assessments of patient, a less risk-adverse approach to discharge planning, and more consistent application of discharge policy is needed. When it's talking in terms of local authorities. I was just wondering whether Audit Wales are advocating a greater risk approach that the council should be undertaking.
So it's probably, I think, we're happy, as I said, to come back to committee to talk through that report. I haven't been involved in that piece of work explicitly to be able to give you a sort of definitive answer on that, unfortunately. So I know that hence the reason why it'd be good to kind of bring that report back to committee or to a scrutiny committee, and then we'll be able to answer your questions. But if that isn't for some time, I'll pick that query up and come back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah Jane. Anything else, Don? I think that would be useful, Sarah Jane, because obviously, given the government's, Welsh Government's view about this 50 days policy or whatever it was about discharging people from health and ensuring that there was a social care element to it. Now, in some respects, I think it's very easy for the Welsh Government to say it, but again, it's a collective between the Health Board and the local authorities. But if it wasn't working previously, which it clearly wasn't because there's no capacity in the system, to impose a 50-day requirement to discharge some of these people from hospital back into their home or into the community when there's a huge package needed to support these people. Another one is the disabled facility grant. Some of the houses may need significant work, and that will take a significant amount of time before they even got in there. I think sometimes, this is my own personal view, there's unreasonable expectation about who can provide what. I'm not saying it's shunting, but it's shunting the responsibility on the health, and then health shunting it back onto local government, and there's actually no capacity in the system whatsoever to do it. So I think you said this matter is going to be looked at the regional board, and we wait to see what's said there. And I think it will be quite interesting when it comes back here, because how you address that issue with no capacity, limited financing, very few facilities available now in the private sector, is going to be quite a challenge for anyone to do. So that would be useful. Rhys?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it would be really useful for it to come back. I've read it. I think it's a pretty balanced audit of the entire system. I wouldn't necessarily read into that being reflective of the local authorities, because if you read the reports, it's quite clear about what it's referencing around risks. So I think I think obviously it's available. I think the committee can read it at their leisure, and we'll agenda it for a future meeting, Sarah Jane. And I think it's probably worth having a conversation about that. Obviously, it would be the Health Board need to look at it as well, and the Regional Partnership Board, because it has an impact across those pieces. But obviously, as a local authority, and the 5 local authorities in Gwent, we'll probably need to look at the actions we need to put in place in order to meet some of those recommendations as well.
I think for future, maybe it's worthwhile, and nor am I ever to criticise Audit Wales, is maybe when there's a sort of an extract comes out of a report and put into a paragraph here. I'm just wondering, Sarah Jane, whether you could put where the report can be found. So, do you know what I mean? So it's not seen in isolation, which I think, which is the point Rhys just made, and maybe Don wasn't aware of. So if there could be a link to say this report was published in such and such, and this is where you find it, then that may be actually very useful. Again, it's the same with financial sustainability. We're considering that report a little later on, I think, the national report. And again, we considered it earlier when Newport did it on its own. Again, one of the issues I was going to raise is regard to local projects, is the follow-up review of corporate arrangements for safeguarding, which we've been looking at. And again, the comment there that 3 of the recommendations highlighted in the 2019 report hasn't been dealt with, and obviously still remain a weakness. Now, hopefully we've dealt with that as part of our ongoing work in regards to when I think we had an internal audit report as well on it, or certainly. So, yes, they're snapshots, I think, and clearly that would give me concern if that hasn't been addressed as well. But I understand it has been addressed. So,
yeah, thanks, Chair. Oh, sorry, no, I was just going to.
No, go on, Sarah.
Sorry, I'll take that on board and we can include some hyperlinks and things like that and explain where the reports are.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think yeah. If you can, we can circulate because that one's out, right? The key one is available. Yes, I think Tanya can give you assurance of what's happening around corporate safeguarding. You know, within your, you know, you've had the Audit Wales report, exactly the same as the internal audit reports. You can seek further assurance, or you can put that into the work programme for a report back at a future date to ensure that we've covered off all those things to your... I
know we've been discussing it for the last couple of sessions, corporate safeguarding, and I'm getting that reassurance from Tanya anyway, so Tanya's nodding on the screen, so you know, as long as we're assured that those matters have been signed off, that's the key issue. Okay, any other questions? No, any comments? Dom?
I just wanted to make a comment that's on page 82 of our pack, where it's got Newport City Council as 24% of its 95 areas considered to be within the most deprived 10% areas in Wales. This is the highest of all the unitary councils in Wales. And I just wanted to really illustrate that fact in the backdrop that the officers are working against and the solutions that are being looking to be found. And I think it's so easy just to gloss over that we've got the highest in all the councils in Wales, and that we're finding solutions for. So well done to the officers against a very difficult backdrop.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dom. Obviously, we've got the report for us. I think we just note the contents of the report. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Jason. Seconded, Norma. Anyone against? No. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah Jane. We go on to the next item then, which is the item 6, the Audit Wales Annual Audit Plan 25, which is pages 55 to 80.
Okay, thanks, Chase.
Thanks, Helen.
This one. So, thanks. We present to you today our audit plan for 2025. So it sets out what work we're going to undertake for the financial audit, performance audit, and our other audit work. Who's going to undertake it, when we plan to do that, and ultimately how much we propose it will cost you. So if I start off with our financial audit work, so that work begins on page 6. So just to bring to your attention the concept of materiality. So we do audit your financial statements to identify and correct any material misstatements. So those are misstatements that may lead the reader of the accounts into being misled. So materiality applies quantitatively but also qualitatively as well. So for 2025, our planning risk assessment has set materiality at just over 6.4 million for our financial statements of the Newport Council, but we also audit the group accounts as well, so a separate materiality for that one, which is just under 6.6 million. Also, to draw your attention to the reporting threshold, so that is 5% of our materiality figure, so that's just over 300,000 for both the single entity and the group accounts. So on page 9, we start to run through our risks that we've identified during our audit planning process. So we've identified one significant financial statement risk. This is present in all entities and therefore in all our audit plans, so it's not isolated to Newport. It is the risk of management override, which is a compulsory risk that we need to address within our audit work. Our other areas of focus, again, begin on page 9 of our report. So we have identified areas that we will undertake specific work on, including the valuation of the pension fund and land and buildings, the senior officer remuneration report. There's IFRS 16 for leases. A new standard comes into effect from 1st of April 2024, so we need to see how the council has accounted for and disclosed that within their accounts this year. The change in status of the South East Wales CJC, so we'll need to determine how that is again accounted and disclosed within your financial statements this year. Related party disclosures, the new financial management system, and also the accuracy of grant income within your accounts as well. So those are the areas of focus we've identified from our initial planning work. If that changes at all, we'll bring another report back and keep you updated on that. One thing we've brought new into the report this year, you might have noticed a change in format, is our financial statements audit timetable on page 15 of our report. So just noting a key change in the timetable for this year is that we're required to audit and certify the financial statements a month earlier, so by the 31st of October 2025. I'll then roughly go over the performance audit work programme, which begins on our page 16. So we've got 3 elements to our performance audit work, and this just sits alongside our national audit programme of work as well, which is referenced at the beginning of the report. So firstly, we will undertake our normal audit work with regards to proper arrangements in accordance with our Code of Audit Practice. That's to secure economy, efficiency and effectiveness in the use of resources. So we conduct that work in accordance with our global performance audit standards. The second is that we also undertake examinations to comply with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and that work will also be set out in further detail as and when required. The third element of our performance audit work is then with regards to our local audit work programme, and this comes out from our previous risk assessments and discussions with the Council. So we've identified 3 areas we want to concentrate on this year, being a review of scrutiny arrangements, leisure services and library services. So those scopes will be worked up with officers in due course and undertaken during the year. Additionally, we have a thematic review that covers all 22 councils this year, and that's to concentrate on workforce pressures within local government. We've done something similar within the NHS recently, which you can find the report to that on our website. So moving on then to our audit fee, which is set out from page 19. You'll be pleased to note that our financial audit fee this year has reduced by 3.2% on last year due to audit efficiencies that we have managed to gain through the ongoing adoption of the ISA 315 requirements. And the other areas of our audit work, so our performance audit fee, our grant certification work and our other financial audit work has a standard 1.7% increase to that in accordance with our fee scheme, which is also published on our website. So lastly, I was just going to mention a change to our audit team. So Richard Harris comes in as Financial Engagement Lead and Overall Engagement Director for this year. So he replaces Matthew Edwards within the team. The other key contacts remain the same. So happy to take any questions on the content of the report.
Thank you for taking us through that, Helen. Are there any questions? No? Any comments? No? The only comment I've got, it's pleasing to see that Newport Council are paying £5,000 less this year than last year. So I'm sure it'll go well on some of their service provision. And the other question I pose every year, and I never get an answer, and I don't expect to get an answer, is how actually does Newport City Council know it's getting value for money out of the provision of services from Audit Wales? Because obviously it's a bit of a monopoly in regards to this work, and many of you will know years ago in a former life we used to have in my authority PwC do our audit and such like. So it just concerns me now and again as to how local government gets an assurance that it's getting value for money in regards to the services provided. Now, I don't expect Helen, Sarah, Jane or Verity to respond to that, but it's just a comment I normally make because it's one I want to make, because normally you would test the market, or you'd certainly review it after a couple of years to make sure you're getting value for money. Sarah Jane, are you going to comment?
Right. Yeah, just to explain that, I guess linked to that point is that we do conduct a kind of stakeholder survey, so we do engage with the chief executives and others to have a discussion about how everything is going and that kind of thing, so to give you a bit of assurance in terms of that. So I'm not sure if you're aware of that, so I just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Sarah Jane. No one ever asked me when I was there previously, but there we are. Maybe that's new. Sorry, Helen.
No problem. Indeed, and it's a good question. If I could draw your attention to page 23 in our report, which details our audit quality report. So whether we're value for money, what we do take very seriously is how good an audit we undertake. So we get externally reviewed by the ICAW Quality Assurance Department every year for financial audit. And we do have really positive feedback from them, and we're actually, they give us ratings on our audits that they review. So just to assure you that we're doing very good work, and that is set out within our audit quality report, which we issue every year. So, yeah, have a look at that one.
Thank you, Helen. I wouldn't expect to say anything else. Okay, there are no further comments. I assume that the recommendation is to note the contents of the report. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Don. Can I have a second there? Thank you, Jason. Anyone against? No. Can I thank the audit team from Audit Wales for being with us? We've got another report now from you on that, which is item 8, which is the Audit Wales Q3 work programme and timetable update, and that's pages 89 to 102 in our report, in our agenda pack. Sarah Jane again?
Yeah, I'm going to run through this again. So, again, a report you'll be familiar with. It captures where we are with our programme of work and the work of ESTIN and CIW. The update is as of the 31st of December, but I'll go through some of the updates since then as well. And obviously we've just covered the annual audit summary, because there it says draft issued to the Council. So obviously we've issued the final one and had a discussion about that today. In terms of the financial audit work, so some of the things to pick up on there, I guess, that work on housing benefit has been complete, and the field work, I should say, and we're looking to certify in the next month or so. Our planning and kind of interim work for the audit of the 24-25 accounts has commenced, with the final audit schedule between July and October, and we will start our grants work and the Gwent Crem work later this year. In terms of performance audit then, just to highlight some of the key updates, we've just touched on the unscheduled care and agreed that report will come to a future governance and audit committee. In terms of the assurance and risk assessments, I mean, most of the ones you said that you've got there, in terms of the 23-24 programme we've covered, or going to be discussing today the commissioning one. So I wasn't proposing to kind of go through any of those, but it gives you an overview in terms of the work that we have done. But in terms of 24-25, the assurance and risk assessment, that work is ongoing, but we had a workshop with senior leadership in Cabinet back in February, and had a kind of where they talk through their kind of risks and challenges, and from our perspective, I think we felt it was a really comprehensive overview and a good discussion. And then the local piece of work there is on environmental health. We've met with the head of service and are currently kind of discussing the scope with officers. We're looking hopefully to do the field work on that piece of work over the next couple of months. The update also then covers where we are with the different local government studies. A couple of updates, so just to say, in terms of temporary accommodation, that fieldwork has been complete and we're currently looking to draft the report. Similarly on the capital planning, it says TBC there, but actually the fieldwork for that piece of work is underway as well. Just to say, Newport is not one of the tracer sites for that study, because I know there's a column to say where the fieldwork is planned, so just to update you on that. And in terms of children's services, I know there's been some discussions with CIW and the executive group of ADSS about that piece of work, and there will shortly be something coming out to the council about the scope of that. And it captures then the work of ESTIN and CIW. But yeah, happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. Are there any questions? No, I've just got a quick question. In the previous report we received from yourselves, obviously the local project work you may be looking into is scrutiny, leisure and libraries. Will that come forward in the next plan, Sarah Jane, or... Yes, it will. That's okay, because presumably it's just sort of come out as part of the a part of that report.
So our next quarterly update, we can capture those projects then and give you an update in terms of where we are with those. So yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Any comments? No. Okay. Again, I think it's we note the contents of the report. Someone prepared to move, please. Thank you, Norma. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Don. Anyone against? No, thank you very much. Again, so I think that's it. So thank you, colleagues. Oh, no, there's a couple more reports, I think.
There is, yeah.
You've really got a, it's your show tonight. It would have been nice to see you here, but there we are.
But individually, we weren't made to make it tonight, but we appreciate we've got a few reports.
That's okay. Don't worry. Okay. Next item is the Audit Wales National Report on Financial Sustainability. Primarily, I think this has been brought to us just for information, because obviously we discussed it. We discussed Newport's one previously, and this sort of captures the whole national picture. So I don't want anyone to introduce it. Hopefully people have read it. I'm not going to make my normal comments I do about it, about reserves. I think you've heard it before, Sarah Jane, so I'm not going to raise that anymore. So are there any questions on the report? No? Any comments? Don?
Yeah, the one thing I noted was on where it's got on our pack, pages 156 to 164, where it's talking about the financial arrangements that the different authorities have got. I was really interested that under Newport, the council has sound financial arrangements in place. I went through all the others and I didn't find the word sound. So I think it's a testimony to the arrangements we have. I saw where some councils have got an untested approach, which sounds interesting, and others might have good arrangements or appropriate arrangements, but I didn't see anything that had sound arrangements, but Newport have, and I think we should highlight that and note it and thank the officers accordingly.
Thank you, Don.
So that's one comment. I have got another comment.
Go on, then.
Okay. I think the report doesn't deal with a few elephants in the room, to do that. That the report doesn't address or comment on, it's talking about the financial stability in the future of local government, but it doesn't talk about whether the present configuration of 22 authorities is sustainable in the future, which I think is an elephant in the room. In some ways, it would have been nice to have commented on that and to bring that to the fore, because I do think that if we're talking about the future and it's not, and the questions that are raised, surely that has to be there. But that would just be a comment.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, Don. I don't want anyone from Audit Wales to come back on that. John?
Thanks, Chair. I've got a couple of quick comments, if I can. The first one's actually Don's beat me to it, because I was going to mention about the sound financial arrangements for Newport Council. It was good to read that. It's really encouraging. So it was nice to see that. But yeah, obviously this isn't the space or the place for party political points. So I'm going to try and be very careful what I say here. Yes. But obviously, the statements that jumped out at me was local government is financially unsustainable in the medium term, and that local governments have been subjected to, again, quote-unquote, unprecedented financial pressures since 2008. And it's really worth highlighting that, because obviously we all know what the pressure the budgets have been under recently. And when you read that in black and white from the auditor to say that the pressures since 2008, bearing in mind we're now in 2025, it's shocking. And then on page 7 of the reports, where it quoted various facts and figures in terms of the increases in demand for service and the reduction in funding, again, really sobering figures. when you see it there in black and white, I mean, we all have the narrative that we all portray, in our day-to-day sort of role, if you like. But when you see those figures in black and white, it really highlights what local councils are facing. I do have one question. I don't know whether it's possible to answer this or not, but one of the issues that I've raised a number of times in various forums is the idea that councils have to have a budget every single year. And I don't know whether Audit Wales are able to comment on this, but I just wondered, in a previous life I worked for Communities First, and one of the biggest bugbears for us was we had to work to quarterly targets, 3 monthly targets, which was mind-boggling. You try to set in long-term projects for the benefit of the community, and yet you have to hit a target within a quarter, or you don't get your funding for the next quarter. And it's a similar sort of thing with councils. So I'm just wondering, what is the feasibility for having biannual budgets, or even longer-term financial planning, so you don't have to have these budgets set every single year, where the long-term planning then gets very limited?
Not for us.
And apologies if this is the wrong place to raise that, but thank you, Chair.
Oh, Sarah, if you want to address that, then you can, but it's not a matter for us, because clearly, as you say, John, it's a matter for the government. My understanding is Welsh Government's indicated it may give 2 yearly budgets at some stage, but that's, I should imagine, in the mix. And again, what we mustn't forget is there's an election next year in 2026 for Welsh Government, so that could throw it all up in the air. So, John, with all respect, I don't think it's a matter for our committee to look at that. But the other points, I think, are very relevant you raise. I think the sustainability of local government, you know, it's been weak since 2010. So it's, you know, it's been an ongoing problem, and it picks up Don's point in some respects. All I hope is that Welsh Government takes some notice of this report. Because it does say the obvious in some respects. It does point out, you know, I think it does point out somewhere I read it, that, you know, Welsh Government bring in pieces of legislation with no additional funding for local government to pick up that tab. You know, and again, there are constant requirements of local government with no funding mechanism whatsoever. It's to address it within its current budget. So it's no wonder the system is broken in some respects, and I don't think it's going to get any easier. But I think Rhys has got something to say. Rhys, are you...
Well, I will, if you want. I think that there's 2 bits to this. I think budgets, the actual budget has become less of a problem. The problem has changed now. You know, we had a period of time with, you know, significantly high inflationary pressures, and now we've got significantly high service pressures and service demands, and that expectation and legislative burden that goes along with that. And those are the things. So I suppose over that period of time, from 2008 to now, the challenge has changed. It is not necessarily a monetary one. If you look back to the earlier point in the report around the level of deprivations in an area like Newport, plus our population growth, which is, you know, completely outstrips anywhere else in Wales, and it's managing that within those budgetary constraints, because they are still constrained, and also planning on an annual basis. And what you're trying to do on with an annual budget is plan for the medium to long term. And so there's a real challenge within that.
Thank you for that, Rhys. Well, I'm going to stop it there because I think we're going a bit off topic. So if there are no other comments, the recommendation is to note the contents and findings of the report. Someone prepared to move, please. Thank you, Jason. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Don. Anyone against? No, thank you. Item 10 then is the Audit Wales arrangements for commissioning services, pages 171 to 188 of our report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll take this one. Good evening, everyone. My name is Verity Parnell, and I'm a Senior Auditor at Audit Wales. So this review is part of a national thematic review on commissioning arrangements that we've carried out in all councils. So in addition to the local reports for each council, we'll also be publishing a national summary report. The focus of the review was to look at whether the council has put in place proper arrangements to secure value for money in the use of its resources when commissioning services. So just for context, Commissioning is the process by which the Council designs the services it intends to deliver. So that starts with defining the service and the desired outputs and outcomes, and ends when the Council organises its method of delivery. So that means that all Council services are commissioned regardless of the specific delivery mechanism that's chosen. So because of this, the audit didn't cover procurement or contract management arrangements. We reviewed the Council's corporate arrangements and we selected 2 services to test how those arrangements work in practice. The 2 services we looked at were a families and community service that was commissioned in 2023 and a property management service that was still being commissioned at the time we conducted the fieldwork. We consulted with the Council when selecting these services, and we undertook fieldwork between March and August last year, so the report reflects the arrangements the Council had in place at that time. We found that the Council has arrangements to secure value for money when commissioning services, but that these aren't consistently used. And this was based on the findings that we've outlined in the report, and that includes that the Council does not consistently consider a range of commissioning options or the wider impacts different commissioning options could have. We found that the Council does involve partners and stakeholders when commissioning services, but doesn't always monitor against intended outcomes for those services. In terms of corporate arrangements, the Council has a suite of project management tools, and the Council had updated these in the period between the 2 commissioned services that we reviewed. So the report contains one recommendation, which is that the Council should put arrangements in place to ensure that all service areas use the Council's corporate processes and tools when commissioning services. The Council has completed a management response form setting out how they intend to address the recommendation. So, Chair, shall I hand over to officers at this point to speak to their response form?
Yep, thank you. Tracy?
Thanks, Chair. So, yeah, just to pull out a few highlights from that. So, as outlined in the review, it's about commissioning of services. I just want to be really clear about what that is. It's not procurement, it's service reviews, so that relates to our response, which I'll come on to. So, if you like, service design, service redesign. So, I think we need to recognise how inherently complex that is. To review a service and to determine its future delivery is inherently bespoke and is not the same in every case. That said, we do need to be more consistent. So the first example was in the 22-23 financial year. Really pleased to see the more positive practice by the 23-24 financial year. You know, it notes a comprehensive options appraisal and the use of the updated project management tools at that time. As a side note, it doesn't say in the report, but that was actually also, we worked with a scrutiny policy review group on that. I mean, they were our officer tools, but we also worked with members on that piece of work. That is yet to complete. We're setting up the new LAPCO that came out as a result of that. But really, so really positive to see that progress, although I really must point out they're 2 quite different services. By this financial year, the 24-25 financial year, we have the project management toolkit now published, pushing that consistent practice, training started, engagement with officers, and so therefore our commitment in the management response form is to complete all of that training with relevant service managers by the 30th of September. But a lot of that is already in place. I wanted to note also that the committee will obviously review progress through the 6-monthly regulatory report, so we can let you know whether that's happened. We need to be proportionate in our use of that project management toolkit, so obviously there'll be small and large service reviews, different ones, but that is now in place. In terms of how those reviews and when they go on to commissions are then reported, we now, and I don't think we did in the first instance, certainly have departmental management meetings, DMTs, with consistent agendas, which include all projects and service reviews, and they're overseen by directors, and I guess a more consistent approach all around. But we recognise there's, you know, further journey to travel there. I think Rhys might want to come in. Thanks, Chair.
Oh yeah, I suppose just a minor point. I suppose from me. I suppose, you know, we've got a recommendation from Audit Wales there. However, I think you know, there's obviously more consideration within the narrative of the report around that consistency basis, so that, you know, that is duly noted and recognised. And I think, you know, it's nice that it's noted within the report about, you know, there's a sequence in here between these two pieces of work, and I'd be significantly more alarmed if the responses to those pieces of work were the other way round, you know. So it shows progress, but clearly we've got a way to go with this. You do get your update in your six monthly review. We've got a timescale associated with our management response. The committee might want to consider us bringing a paper back after that 30th of September date, just for that added reassurance about, actually, these are the things we've now implemented, this is the model that we're working towards, and, you know, and if the committee can consider that, and perhaps consider that as maybe a piece of work that they want internal audit to pick up as to look at. Just for your ongoing assurance around it.
I think we'd endorse that. Is just that, get that reassurance, really. Obviously, you know, you'll be doing your piece of work, but the independent assessment is important, isn't it, for us? So I think we would ask whether that could be done October-ish, presumably, through migrant, through audit, if possible. Yeah, okay. Okay, Verity, we've had the comments from the officers. We've had your report, clearly, which sets out the recommendation. Obviously, we will be monitoring that, and then we've got some reassurance from internal audit picking up, you know, the independent sort of review of it. Just got the committee now. Are there any questions? No? Any comments? Don?
Yeah, I just wanted to, in some ways, what Rhys was saying, that the direction of travel is encouraging. So I think if it's coming before us later, but I think we should note the direction of travel is very positive. Yeah. And doing that, and really in any organisation of this size with complexity, there's always going to be difficulties, you know, because we don't live in a perfect world. So I think the direction of travel is really the key thing.
Yeah. Tracy.
Sorry, Chair, you've just reminded me of something. So we actually have an internal audit now ongoing of our project management consistency and the toolkit. So actually, that
they tie in then, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And I should have mentioned that. Sorry. Thanks.
Thank
we
you,
can
Rhys.
report that back.
Okay.
No, you knew that too, Rhys, I'm sure.
So, you know, I'm sure Amy was going to jump in and remind me of that. Okay, any other comments?
No. Say thank you for that, because that answered one of my queries, really. It was, you know, whether the toolkits have been properly used and staff adequately trained. So that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation is that we note the contents and findings of the report, and I think we also note the progress being made at this present moment in time, and that we will receive an internal audit report, hopefully towards the end of October, which will pick up, hopefully, the issues raised. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Don. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Jason. Anyone against? No? Thank you very much. I think that's it. Audit Wales colleagues, if you wish to leave the meeting, please do so, if you've got somewhere else to go. But if not, I'm quite happy for you to stay and listen in. Okay, item 11 of the report is the Internal Audit Plan 25-26. Amy?
Thank you, Chair. My plan wasn't really to take it through line by line. I thought I'd go over the sort of high-level bits and then open the floor up to questions, if that's okay with you.
Yes, you know, sort of an executive summary, please, not line by line.
So we've got the plan here for 25-26. So the report really aims to inform the members of the work that will be undertaken by internal audit. We held planning meetings with each head of service and discussions took place to ensure the audits were aligned to key risks, objectives or other areas where internal audit could add value. And really that planning process, the aim really is to put us in a position where we can provide a well-informed and comprehensive annual audit opinion at the end of the next financial year. You'll see in the report that in terms of timing for committee, I actually didn't quite have time to hold all of those planning meetings. I have done that now, and the aim is to bring an updated plan to you in May. I think that was the education area. There were also a couple of areas that we talked about, areas for audit but actually I think a further meeting just to refine those. There were a couple of questions about when we'd audited them previously, and obviously given my sort of newness to the council, I needed to go away and do a bit more digging. So there just might be a few changes, but I'll update committee of that when I bring that back in May. At point 10 in my report, just outline some of the key areas for the inclusion in the plan. So we've got a couple of audits deferred from last year. We've got some key financial controls. There's a couple of areas where we're doing a bit of sort of what I would call proactive work, where we're working with some of the service areas where they've recognising they're going to do restructures or put significant changes in, so using us at that early stage, which I think is really key. And then audits with a link to the corporate risks. I also just wanted to raise the committee's attention to the proactive fraud work I've put in the plan, and I know that's something that's been discussed at previous committees. Those areas of proactive assurance are linked to the high-risk areas out of the fraud risk assessment that's been done previously. But I just wanted to make it clear to committee that I'll be able to use those to inform the annual opinion because they are testing the control framework. Just briefly, the resources to deliver the plan remain unchanged from last year. I know that obviously the transition into swap is effective on Tuesday, but your resource is the same for your internal audit. We are recruiting. I've got interviews next week for the vacant posts, so I'm hopeful that they'll be successful. We've got some really good candidates. So I will update the committee in May on that side of things. Obviously, I've talked about bringing an updated plan, and I think that's just one really sort of important point that I want to make here in terms of revisiting the plan, making sure that the plan stays relevant, making sure we're aligned to the key risks. I mean, there's been a couple of things mentioned today. That's really important for me. I want the plan to be dynamic for you. So, and my aim is really to go back to the heads of service partway through this year and say, does this plan still add value? Is it what we need it to be? So just wanted to raise that with committee. Traditionally, with your audit plan, you'd have an audit charter. Now, I haven't brought that to this committee because of the joining swap. So in May, you'll have that audit charter, which outlines basically the blueprint for how the internal audit function will operate. And then finally, just a quick mention from me about the new global internal audit standards. So they're effective from April, and I will be bringing further information back to committee so you can understand what that means for internal audit and how it's going to impact it. And that's really it from me. Open to questions.
Thank you, Amy, for that. Are there any questions? Any comments? No? The only comment I got is great to have you on board. Obviously, I know the officer team are looking to working with you, and they have worked with you to date. So, you know, that relationship needs to be secured and, you know, continued. And built upon, and obviously we look forward to the reports coming forward in due course. I think the document being organic and moving on and not being, you know, set in stone as at today, I think is also a valid one because things change, and I think you need that opportunity to, you know, have those discussions and move things around. So I think that's a great step forward as well.
And Chair, probably, sorry, what I missed from there is I'm hoping ahead of the May meeting, perhaps I could get committee's time outside of the meeting just to sort of talk you through some of the changes you might see and expect from swap. And sorry, so I should have said that, but we'll do that outside of committee and, you know.
No, I think that would be great, you know, a 3:30 to 4:30 meeting. The only thing I would ensure is that actually members of the committee turn up. You know, it was great to have Jason and John with us tonight, but the rest didn't turn up at all, and I'm going to raise that in a different place. But you know, if we're going to get instructed on this and need to be updated on the way you work, and you know the changes have been made, you know it's essential that these members are here. So you never know, we may have new members in May. Things may change, but yeah, no, that will be useful as well. You know, any training is useful. Every day is a school day. You know, and I think that's important. Okay, if there's no comments and no questions, then the report is that the internal audit plan 25-26 be approved. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Jason. Seconded. Thank you, Don. Anyone against? No. Thank you very much, Amy. We've now got the 24-25 Corporate Risk Register update. Paul?
Thank you very much, Chair. So, committee, this is the Corporate Risk Register update for Q3. So this covers the period October to December 2024. Just to summarise the report, I won't go into any detail, just go through the main points of the report. So the key points to raise for that quarter is that there were 15 risks recorded, 7 severe, 8 major risks. In comparison to Q2, there was 1 risk which had reduced in risk score, which was the WCCIS replacement risk. So just for committee's attention and just to understand what that is, this is the replacement of the WCCIS system within social services. At the end of Q3, a new supplier was secured for the council and for the wider Gwent region. And a project team is now in place to deliver that new system. So the Director of Social Services was happy for that risk to reduce in recognition that we secured that arrangement, and that is now going on. Obviously, that will still be monitored through the Corporate Risk Register, as well as being reported through our own project management arrangements through to the Directorate Management teams. So on that basis, we'll open to any questions from the committee.
Yeah, thank you for that, Paul. Any questions? Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just another quick one on that, on page 200. What's the new risk that we got, and what are the 3 closed risks?
Yeah, so these are service level risks that were reported in Q3. So the new risk was in relation to a housing risk, which was on the back of the internal audit review, which was completed and David had discussed there. So that was the new risk which was raised in relation to that. The 3 closed risks for Q3 were finance risks within the service area. Following discussion with the head of finance, it was felt that the risk could be closed for that period, so they relate to finance risks.
Any other questions? Any comments? The only comment I got, Paul, is about WICIS. It's great that good progress has been made there. I posed this question in a different forum, in a different authority, and the only issue I just wanted some reassurance about, and it's is that the Gwent system will speak to the Glamorgan system, which will speak to the North Wales system. And because obviously lots of these young people are sort of sometimes transigent, and it's not just young people, it's adults as well, I assume. And it's ensuring that the systems are compatible to share information. Now, I know that may be technical, and most probably too technical for me, but it's just ensuring that that's been covered. I don't know whether anyone can deal with that.
Sorry, Chair. I don't know if Tanya can provide an answer otherwise. It is a technical thing, so rather than us trying to guess at an answer for you, we can provide a written response.
No, clearly, if you don't know the answer, then I'm happy for someone to come back. But, you know, we're investing a tremendous amount of funding in these systems. Unfortunately, Welsh Government, you know, as normal, didn't give the requisite direction and funding and that, and it would be great to have had an all-Wales system. But I'm just want some reassurance that one system will speak to another. If you haven't got the answer, Tanya, then I'm happy for you to come back to us.
Thank you, Chair. I will come back to you about the inter-authority, but I just wanted to make the point that the business case ADSS put forward into Welsh Government, which we've heard, I think, just hot off the press, that it has been accepted. We were just waiting for the financials attached to that. There is an expectation, a very clear expectation, that those systems do talk to one another. Now, definitely, there's another branch to the first branch to this is getting the new social care system over the line by spring next year. That is our first priority. But Welsh Government are very clear that once that is done, we then have to work on getting the health systems and the social care systems talking to one another. It may not be that they talk to one another, but it is about the practitioners involved in those care cases can view information easily on a social care system or a health system. So it might be that there might not be a joint system, but it might be a joint place that we can go to where there's an umbrella where those systems are held and we can access that information. That's the key, isn't it? That we can access information about one person, whether it's held by health or social care. And that absolutely is the driving force, the expectation from Welsh Government. And we're very committed and working towards that goal.
Yeah, thank you for that reassurance, Tan. It's the drawing of the dots, it is, because there's lots of information held by public sector organisations who don't necessarily speak to one another, and things get dropped between two stools, and, you know, it's sort of trying to ensure that doesn't happen. But thank you for that assurance, Tanya. If there are no further comments... Oh, Jason?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. It's just another quick one I noticed about on the risk register, the corporate risk register, with the demand on the ALN and SEN support. I know we got as a 12 on there, but by looking, well, within Newport City as well, you know, the amount of people, many children now are being actually diagnosed with the ALN needs. How would that risk be significantly increased on coming forward?
I'll provide a brief overview to it. So, essentially, that is looking at the demographics and the people that we know are coming through the system. That's the risk as it currently stands. So, you know, we've got increased provision in Newport, and as part of the budget setting process, we've also looked at actually some additional capacity within the city as well. So that is it's monitored on a regular basis. So the Chief Education Officer and her team monitor that. We know the numbers coming through. The capacity is as there is at the moment. It is a risk. That's why it's on the corporate risk register, but it's a managed risk at the moment.
Thanks for that reassurance, Rhys. And again, we need to remember this is Q3. It could all change in Q4. And again, somewhere else where I belong to, the ALN risk is right at the very top now. It's a sort of a critical risk. So again, it's all on demand, isn't it, and needs of these young kids. So thank you for that. Okay, if there are no other comments and no other questions, then the recommendation is to note the contents of the report. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Jason. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Dawn. Anyone against? No, thank you. Item 13, lessons learned from the 23-24 accounts closed down and financial statements preparation. Marion?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Unfortunately, Laura can't be here with us this evening, so Ping and myself will take you through this report. So this report is an annual report. We do it straight after the accounts have been signed and sealed. Obviously, this year that time was quite constrained because we didn't sign the accounts until January. But the lessons learned session and process has been completed, and this report sets out the work that was done. So it sets out things from the previous year that was changed, and they didn't give rise to any issues this year, so that was pleasing to sort of note. They're now embedded in our kind of business as kind of usual. And the areas that lessons learned process is focused on this year round is also noted in the report as well, mainly around how we use the new system and housekeeping, some sessions on grants, which you heard earlier is a particular area that Audit Wales are going to be focused on. Audit evidence and the timeliness of that. We've still got some work on the fixed assets, on the PP&E, and again, the issue which affects other councils as well, consolidation of the Cardiff Capital Region. There's an active group looking at that now. We've been assured that this year will be better. We'll wait and see. And we did have some issues last year, which was something that we haven't had before, with the Newport Transport accounts, which is around the group accounts. I'm hoping that was a one-off last year, but again, the lessons learned and this note here explains to you that that liaison with Newport Transport and their auditors needs to be much closer this year, so that it doesn't fix the problem, but we'll know the problem sooner, and that is helpful. Ping, I don't know if you've got anything else to add to what I've just said. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marion. Yeah, I just wanted to add really that what we've done this year as well as the PPL with Audit Wales, which obviously fed into this report. We did a morning session with the accountancy team as well. So, you know, we looked at some of the areas that we obviously needed to improve upon for the 24-25 accounts, such as the grant evidence and some of the other bits, the timeliness as well around the provision of some of this evidence. So we held a session with the accountancy team and went through the areas such as the housekeeping of the financial system and how important this was this year, because obviously it's our first year end. So the cleaner the system, obviously the better the quality of the information in there at year end. So yeah, just to really add that, you know, we are looking to do these sessions a couple of times a year as well, just to make sure as well that the accountancy staff are all up to date on technical changes as well with the financial standards. So it was good actually to have that in-house knowledge with Laura and the team, then spreading that knowledge to the rest of the wider accountancy team. That's it. I think that's all I wanted to add, Marion.
Yeah, thanks, Marion. Thank you, Ping, for that. Are there any questions? Any comments? No. Oh, Norma.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say I really welcome this paper, you know, in terms of the honesty of the paper. A few of the issues really concern management outside of the finance department, and I suppose what I'm looking for is assurance that the budget managers and those dealing with, you know, getting evidence of payments for grants have been reminded of their responsibilities.
Yeah, the timetable that we've got makes it clear who is responsible for what aspect, and also with the timetable this year, there's been a kind of a note sent around as well, just to make it really clear as to that this is a corporate-wide project, effectively, and actually, so the housekeeping that is this week's work, because this is the last week of the financial year, you know, that is for every single budget manager to be doing their own housekeeping. So we've been making those points very clear in that notes. Inevitably, there'll be issues, but you know, we've attempted to be really clear with everybody as to what their part is.
It was really good to hear about the accountancy development session as well. Really good. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments? I think you stole my thunder, and Ping did really, because I was going to compliment the team and your team for getting the whole of the accountancy section together for a training session. I think that you know, is really worthwhile, because from the top to the bottom, at least everyone knows now what the issues are and how hopefully to work forward on it. Marion?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's something that we used to do regularly up until, well, let's say sort of COVID. It has slipped then, and it's something that, you know, Ping and I now are very keen to resurrect. And there is a 3-line whip that says you will be coming in for a morning 2 or 3 times a year, and I think it's a really positive thing, and we should all be doing it.
Yeah, that's pleasing to hear. And again, I think the point Norma made about the finance department being at the end of the sausage machine, you know, you rely upon evidence and detail from lots of other people, and unfortunately you are the chasers in some respects to make sure this is in place. So, you know, anything that we can do, then, as you know, just tell us, and I'm sure we will assist you in that process.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, the help of this committee is appreciated. You are very supportive of us in that respect, and that is appreciated. The timetable is getting stricter, as Audit Wales have just confirmed to you. Our deadline is still June, but theirs is quicker. So therefore we have to, and again, this is a project which goes all the way, which includes their audits. So therefore, as an organisation, we need to help them to get their audit done faster. That can only be so done with everybody on board. Yeah.
Thanks, Myron. As I keep saying, firstly to thank you and Ping and your accountancy team for getting us to where we are. I know it's going to be a bit tougher again this year because you've got a month less time. Helen, thank you and your team as well for the support you give, and I'm sure any assistance you can provide is greatly appreciated by the authorities. So thank you and your team for that. The recommendation then is that we note the lessons learned process that has been carried out to date and the planned improvement following lessons learned review. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Norma. Seconded, Jason. Thank you. Anyone against? No, thank you very much. Item 14 is the forward work programme, and I'll also take 14A because there's a nice colourful sheet. I think they're both the same.
Just some points to be made on the forward work programme. So first of all, the 25-26 calendar will be approved in the next committee, as well as appointment chairperson. So this is kind of our formal invitation for members if they wish to consider being the chair of the Governance and Audit Committee. And then that will be decided on the day. It's also a reminder that if committee feel like they would like items to come forward in this committee, that we could have it as kind of an informal or formal standing that in the forward work programme discussion we can discuss any items the committee would like to bring. So it's kind of in the public domain and the officers have a chance to clear whether the scope is within it. But other than that, I think that's the main thing. Again, we've got one meeting left before the end of this work programme.
Thank you for that, Taylor. I think, obviously we've got the programme for the 29th of May. One thing that concerns me is that we don't get overburdened by reports and don't have sufficient time to deal with them. So I'm sure that if any members had anything that they wish to raise, then they would raise it with me or with yourselves, and then we can consider it with the officers as to whether or not it gets on the agenda and that. In regards to the appointment of chairperson and then the vice chair, can I just ask whether you could write out as well, just to the independent members?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll get an email sent out tomorrow.
Is that okay? That's great, to see if anyone is interested. Are the lay members? Thank you, Don. Very pedantic. But anyway, the recommendation is that... Oh, Helen, sorry.
No problem. I'm sure this is in hand and been thought of, but just a polite reminder really that with the bringing forward of the audit certification deadline, if there is a committee or a special committee towards the end of October to enable that, the committee to consider the final draft accounts, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you for that, Helen. I think Rhys and I've picked that up. If there does need to be a special committee, then we'll have a special committee to deal with it. So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
So, the recommendation is to endorse the proposed schedule for the future meetings. Well, we've only got one at the moment, which is the 29th of May. I think it's 29th of May. Basically, that's it for the time being. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Mr. Reid. Lay member. It says independent member there. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Jason. Anyone against? No. Thank you very much. There are no other items on the agenda. Can I thank everyone for their attendance and for the contributions made? Thank you, colleagues from SWAP, for staying the distance. Rhys will give you a medal afterwards. And I now close the meeting. Thank you.